I'm the Nevada Stray Cat, and you're watching my YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're coming back, thanks. It's good to see you again. This is the 2023 Ryker 900 ACE, where ACE stands for Advanced Chassis Enhancement. I had to ask Can-Am customer support to find that out, by the by, and they had to get back to me. My niece Rosa asked where the name Ryker came from, and I had to admit that I did not know. But according to Jason Fogelson, writing in Forbes magazine in 2018, the name Ryker is derived from ride and biker, with a Y substitution paying tribute to the Spider, and of course to the reverse trike layout of the product line, with the two front and one centered rear wheels suggesting that Y shape. So let's look at the stats, starting with actual engine displacement. On the little sibling of my trike, the Ryker 600, the actual displacement is 599 cubic centimeters, or cc's. The 900 models have a displacement of 899 cubic centimeters. The 600 has two cylinders inline fore and aft. The 900 has three. Those 899 cc's generate a manufacturer-rated 82 horsepower, and the engine is governed by default to top out at a little over 100 miles per hour. The front wheels are 16 inches by 4.5 inches, which is a proprietary size, and only one manufacturer currently has tires available in those dimensions. The rear wheel is 16 inches by 6.5. While all three wheels do have brakes, unlike most motorcycles, there is no separate hand lever for the front brake. All three of the disc brakes are controlled by a single brake pedal, which is located on the right side of the trike, just as on other motorcycles. If, for some reason, you can't or don't want to use your right foot for that, there is an aftermarket kit available which puts that control under your hand, like a standard motorcycle's front brake lever. These foot pegs, by the by, are adjustable. Flip them up, move them along the rail to where they're comfortable for your leg, flip them down, and lock them in place. The Ryker has a continuously variable transmission, CVT, which is a type of automatic transmission, meaning you don't have to shift gears. No fiddling with a clutch or shifter at all. There are only two manual changes, the parking lever, here, which we'll talk about more in a minute, and a second lever, here, which controls whether the CVT is in forward or reverse, and is accessed by foot or hand. Lever back, and the transmission is in reverse. Lever forward, and the transmission is in forward. If you're not confident in your ability to change that with your foot, or don't want to lean over every time you need to shift, there are aftermarket jockey shifter levers available which put that control's end up closer to the handlebar for more convenient access. Power is transmitted to the rear wheel via a shaft drive, which is housed in the swing arm on the left side. Starting the Ryker is not as simple as turning a key and pressing a button. There are a few more steps. The first key is the digitally encoded security system key, which has to be placed on the sensor here. The sensor in the mushroom is very short range, and the key has to be pretty much sitting on top of the sensor. You can't just have it in your pocket. Oddly enough, this key does not have to be attached for the engine to run, only to start. While we're here, let's also consider the parking lever. This lever puts the transmission in park. As long as it's in the up position, you're not going anywhere. Putting it in the down position lets you use the other lever to go into forward or reverse gear. In other places in the world, the Ryker comes with this lock by default, but in the United States, it does not. I went ahead and purchased and installed the lock, because without the lock, mischief makers who know what they're doing can walk up, put the machine in neutral, and let it roll away. I don't know if that's something that's really a problem, but it's a potential problem, and you might as well head it off at the pass. I've also installed an aftermarket aluminum parking lever, because it seemed reasonable to me that if I was going to put a metal lock on the trike, maybe I didn't want that lock going into a plastic lever. The Ryker will start with the parking lever up, but it won't actually go anywhere. So you might as well flip it while your hand is over here to put the DESS key on the sensor. With the DESS key on the sensor, you can press the power button, and that lights up the 4.5-inch multifunction display. Flip the engine select lever to run, and you can hear the bike distribute power. You can see here on the display that it wants you to acknowledge that you've read the safety card. So you roll your throttle forward to acknowledge that you have done so. The engine will not start unless you have the foot brake engaged, even if you have the parking brake on.
And then, finally, you can push the power button a second time, and you're ready to ride.
Steering is manual with an adjustable pitman arm, and the listed turn radius is more than 14 feet, which I'll demonstrate. I'm going to steal one of Zach Kortz's tricks and do a U-turn here in the parking lot. I've lined up my outside wheel with this parking line, and I'm putting my bars hard over to the left to demonstrate the tightest circle the Ryker will make. That's 2 1/3 parking spaces, which isn't too shabby, but more than a typical two-wheel motorcycle will take. Overall, the Ryker is 92.6 inches, or 7 feet, 8.6 inches long. It's 59.4 inches wide, which is just shy of 5 feet. While that's small compared to most automobiles, it's large for a motorcycle, and it is not appropriate to park the Ryker in motorcycle parking. You'll be taking up 2 spots, which will generally not be well received. I generally park in a full-size car spot, backed in, with the front wheels even with the back wheels of the cars on either side. This parking arrangement helps with visibility, so that a car driver doesn't think the spot is empty and try to pull in. Liquid-cooled, the Ryker will run on regular 87-octane gasoline, but Can-Am and their parent company, Bombardier Recreational Products, or BRP, recommend 91-octane premium gasoline. Most riders report getting 30 to 35 miles per gallon, which makes the range on one fuel tank about 150 miles. I purchased a locking fuel cap in a key-to-like package with my parking lock, and like that lock, I don't know that people causing mischief by stealing gasoline or adding things which don't belong in your fuel tank is a problem. I just figure it's best to head that potential problem off at the pass. An astonishing amount of the visible Ryker is made of plastic, and gasoline is not kind to plastic. I keep some shop towels in my glove box, which by default is the only luggage accommodation on the Ryker. The glove box, also referred to by the Ryker riding community as the front trunk, or frunk, is only rated to carry 4.5 pounds. So if you want to haul groceries, you'll need aftermarket bags. Likewise, the base configuration is sold as a single seat, so if you want to give pillion rides, you'll need to install the aftermarket passenger seat. It has a 5.28 gallon fuel tank, but that tank is an irregular shape, which leads to the fuel level sensor only covering the bottom 2/3 of the tank. If you have more than 2/3 of a tank, the gauge will always read full. Fortunately, for that final 3.5 gallons, the gauge is actually accurate-ish. Some people use the multifunction display's distance to empty to augment the fuel gauge and estimate how much fuel they have left, or the trip odometer to give them an idea of how much fuel has been consumed. Neither is ideal, but both together will give an assist. Once you have a drop or two of gasoline on the shop towel, by the by, you do not want to put it back in the glove box. That box sits directly over the engine, and it gets hot. Heat plus gasoline equals, well, just fold it up and stick it in your pocket. After you've laundered it, stick it back in the frunk. The seat sits at 23.6 inches above the ground, and that low, exceptionally low for a motorcycle, seat height may explain some of the trike's popularity with female riders. But more on that later. The manufacturer lists the wet weight, that is with all fluids aboard but without the rider, as 649 pounds. Can-Am recommends that you don't exceed a total load of 440 pounds on the trike, and that load includes the rider, any passengers, and any luggage. One thing which I consider a weakness is that it only has 4 inches of ground clearance, which can lead to unfortunate interactions with medium-sized potholes. And I can't emphasize enough that the base model Ryker is not an off-road machine. If you want to ride on dirt or gravel roads, look at the Ryker Rally model. To go off-road, you should look into Can-Am's new Canyon model. I've paused at the bottom of the Interstate 80 on-ramp here, so you can see the Ryker's acceleration. I'm not taking it out of eco mode, so more aggressive riders can easily beat this time. About 3 seconds in, the throttle is all the way open, and it shows you what the machine will do for an older rider like me. You can imagine what you can make it do. The throttle is fully drive-by-wire, electronically controlled. I usually ride in eco mode, which is intended to maximize fuel efficiency. More aggressive riders may prefer the sport mode, and the most aggressive riders may wish to get an aftermarket throttle controller, or even a dynamic controller which can override the speed governor. Me? I find 105 plenty fast enough for American roads and highways. The freeway speed limit around here, by the by, is about 80 miles per hour, so that's where I'll top out. I don't need a speeding ticket. The MSRP for the model I purchased, the base Ryker 900 ACE, is $11,299 American at time of recording. Who knows what the looming trade war might do to that price, but I got mine for less than that because of a model year closeout sale. And if you look around, you can probably also find a good deal. The Ryker 900 is fine on the freeway. The speed limit here in northern Nevada is 80 miles per hour, and the 900cc engine has no difficulty getting up there and staying there. I find myself passing trucks regularly, even on straightaways, but especially on hills. So who is this trike for? In my opinion, it's perfect for somebody commuting to work or running around a modestly sized town all the way up to the largest cities. If your longest average trip is no more than 30 miles, you're definitely the target audience. But even more than that, the Ryker is an entry-level machine. Can-Am says that 1 in 4 purchasers has never owned a motorcycle before, and between 1 in 4 and 1 in 3 Ryker purchasers is a woman. And while I don't have statistics on it, the Ryker videos I see on YouTube indicate a surprisingly strong uptake among people of color. It's also good for older riders. The Ryker is exceptionally stable, remarkably fast, easy to operate, and has a very shallow learning curve. You can be riding this thing competently in 5 minutes, though I'm still learning subtleties of it after owning mine for a couple of months. Longer rides will run into the limitations of the fuel tank size, and let's be honest, the stock seat isn't the most comfortable thing ever put on a motorcycle. It's also not the most uncomfortable thing ever put on a motorcycle. If you're doing longer rides, you'll probably want to stop every hour or so to refuel, and to let your butt relax. One of the other advantages of the Ryker is that there is an extensive selection of aftermarket modifications available, for anything from appearance to performance, though Can-Am, for reliability reasons no doubt, recommends only using factory-approved modifications installed by a Can-Am authorized technician. And that brings me to the one true complaint I have about the Ryker. It's expensive to maintain, not because of the parts, but because of the scarcity of mechanics. For every 10 automotive mechanics in a town, there may be 1 motorcycle mechanic, and for every 10 motorcycle mechanics, there may be 1 who's willing and competent to work on Can-Am trikes. Many of those mechanics are associated with the dealership, and they have very expensive skills. The Can-Am dealer nearest me in Salt Lake City charges $169 American per hour of labor, exclusive of parts. I did manage to find Steve at Steve's Broken Toys in Salt Lake, who normally works on ATVs, UTVs, and snowmobiles, who was familiar with Can-Am products and willing to look at the Ryker. But even he charges $90 an hour for shop fees, time of recording. Fortunately, many maintenance procedures that need to be done can be done by a modestly competent home mechanic, and you can find no shortage of videos on YouTube showing you how to do them. So to wrap this up, am I happy to have purchased the Ryker? You're darn tootin'. I've missed being on a motorcycle and cautious about getting one because of my chronic illness and the balance issues resulting from that illness. Getting the Ryker has been amazing, liberating, a figurative breath of fresh air. I would buy a Can-Am trike again in a flash. I do feel that the Ryker is not the perfect trike for me, but that's not the trike's fault. It's because of my changed circumstances. When I purchased it, I was expecting to be living in a town of about 50,000 people and doing most of my driving in town. Instead, I find myself living in a town of about 5,000 people, and any place I want to go is more than 100 miles away, which leads to longer rides than the Ryker was intended for. I think I'd be better served by the next step up in the Can-Am line, the Sport Touring Spyder F3T, and I hope to step up to that model within a few years. And that too is part of the Ryker's purpose. Once you have a Ryker, you may want a Spyder. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I'm still a new channel, but it's my plan to produce content relating to the Can-Am Ryker. Working on it, but also riding it to interesting places. If you like what you see here, I encourage you to do all the normal YouTube things. Like, subscribe, and share with others you think might enjoy it. I'm the Nevada Stray Cat, and I'll see you around.